Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English for Everyone podcast.
The podcast where we have simple, everyday conversations to help you practice your English.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Joey. It is so good to be here with you today for our longest episode yet.
That's right, Joey. Today we are talking about something very close to our hearts, education and learning.
This is a big one. Since our listeners are currently learning English, I think they will find this very useful. Rachel, do you remember your favorite subject in school?
Oh, definitely. I loved history. I loved hearing stories about the past. But I'll be honest, I was terrible at math. I used to stare at the numbers and feel completely lost.
I was the opposite. I loved math because there was always a right answer. But when it came to writing essays in English class, I would sit there for hours just looking at a blank piece of paper.
That's the thing about education. Everyone has different strengths and weaknesses. A strength is something you are naturally good at, and a weakness is something you find difficult.
Exactly. And that brings us to language learning. Rachel, you speak a bit of Spanish, don't you?
I do, but learning it wasn't easy. I remember the first time I tried to order food in Spain. I practiced the sentence in my head for 10 minutes. Then, when the waiter came, I got so nervous I forgot everything.
That is so common. We call that language anxiety. It's when you feel stressed about making a mistake. But listeners, please remember, mistakes are the only way you learn.
You are so right, Joey. If you don't make mistakes, it means you aren't trying anything new. When I was learning Spanish, I used to carry a little notebook everywhere. Every time I heard a new word, I wrote it down.
That's a great study habit. Another one I like is immersion. That's when you surround yourself with the language, like watching movies without subtitles, or listening to podcasts, just like this one.
Immersion is powerful. It trains your brain to hear the rhythm of the language. But let's talk about the difference between formal education and self-study.
Good point. Formal education is when you go to a school or a university with a teacher. Self-study is when you learn by yourself at home using books or the internet. Which do you prefer?
I think a mix of both is best. A teacher can explain difficult grammar, but you need self-study to really practice and make the language your own.
I agree. These days, we have so many resources. You can learn almost anything on YouTube or through apps. We call this lifelong learning.
Lifelong learning. I love that concept. It means you never stop being a student. Even when you are 80 years old, you can still learn a new skill, like painting or coding or a new language.
It keeps your mind sharp, but sometimes people feel they are too old to learn. Do you think that's true, Rachel?
Not at all. In fact, adults often learn faster in some ways because they are more disciplined. Disciplined means you have the self-control to study even when you don't feel like it.
Discipline is the secret sauce. You don't need to study for 5 hours once a week. It is much better to study for 15 minutes every single day.
Consistency is key. Now, Joey, let's talk about soft skills. We hear that term a lot in jobs lately.
Yes, soft skills. These are things like communication, teamwork, and problem solving. They aren't things you usually learn from a textbook, but they are very important for your career.
Definitely. You can be the smartest person in the room, but if you can't explain your ideas to others, it's hard to be successful.
That's why practicing speaking is so important. Even if you're just talking to yourself in the mirror, it builds your confidence.
I used to do that. I would pretend I was giving a speech or hosting a TV show. It felt silly, but it really helped my fluency.
Fluency. That's the goal for many of our listeners. It doesn't mean you know every word in the dictionary. It just means you can speak smoothly without stopping too much.
Exactly. It's about communication, not perfection.
Well, we've been talking for a long time now. Let's do a deep dive into some of the vocabulary we used. Rachel, what was the first one?
The first one was strengths and weaknesses. Remember, your strengths are your talents, and your weaknesses are your challenges.
Then we had language anxiety. That's the nervous feeling when you speak a new language. Take a deep breath. You're doing great.
We also mentioned immersion, surrounding yourself with English every day.
And don't forget lifelong learning, the idea that you're always growing and learning new things throughout your whole life.
We also talked about being disciplined, having the routine to keep going.
And finally, fluency, speaking easily and smoothly.
Wow, Joey, I feel like I've learned a lot just talking to you today.
Me too, Rachel. To our listeners, what is your favorite way to study? Do you like books or do you prefer listening to music and podcasts?
Tell us in the comments. We love to hear your study tips. Maybe you can help another student who is reading the comments.
That's a great idea. Learning is better when we do it together.
Well, that's all for today. Thank you for staying with us for this long conversation.
Keep practicing, keep listening, and most importantly, have fun with it.
See you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.